Are you ready to scale and outsource your business?
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. I'm your host, Nathan Hirsch, a show where we talk about everything Amazon, Shopify, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Outsourcing and Scaling. Today I am with the one, the only Earnest Epps. Earnest, how you doing today?
I am spectacular. Thanks for having me on.
I'm really excited to talk to you. For those of you who don't know, Earnest is an international speaker, e-commerce entrepreneur, and CEO of eCom Success Academy, High Ticket eCom Secrets, and Earnest Associates. Earnest has 10 years of marketing and sales experience and has been able to take both offline and online marketing strategies to help people combine them both in the marketing powerhouse for running successful online e-commerce businesses. So Earnest, we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about marketing, e-commerce, growing businesses. But first, let's take a big step back. Growing up, what kind of kid were you? Did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Were you a straight A student? Were you a rebel? Take us back.
Yeah, so I was kind of like one of those in-betweeners, right? Like I was like the C guy, did just enough to get to the next level, right? Really enjoyed playing sports. When I was in high school, I did football, wrestling, and track. I was in like 4 different clubs, just stayed super active. But yeah, in terms of like entrepreneurship, my mom did her best striving to condition me to be a employee, right? So I was definitely very much so going down the traditional path because, even starting off, I think like my late elementary, definitely middle school, my mom was having like me and my older sister like think about what we were going to do from a career standpoint for college. So yeah, we definitely were more like, and we were groomed for employee mindset, like got to go to school, got to get a good job. I know everyone talks about that so much these days, and somebody listens just like, oh my God, somebody else talking about that again. But no, that's literally what happened. Like I went to college, my older sister went to college. She got a dual bachelor's degree. She ultimately went to law school, did like another 4 years there. And then, she got all the different paperwork and accolades and things of that nature. And hopefully no one's had to experience this, but like when she got out of school specifically, and she hates me telling this, she just couldn't find a job anywhere. Because before, when she didn't have the degree, she was underqualified. And then when she came out of school, she was overqualified. I mean, literally, like, that's not made up. That's what happened to her. Now, for me specifically, like, I went to school as I was working and going to school full time, obviously, we have these things called bills. And they're pretty much residual, right? We hear about residual money, but like we fall into residual bills very quickly when we become adults. So cell phone bill, gas technically is a bill. You got to put gas in the car, all these other things, right? And so I was working and going to school full time. And then I was having opportunities in terms of like promotion and being able to work more at the place where I was working. And it was just like school bills. And I'm just like, well, these bills keep coming in every single month. And, I keep getting more and more loans year after year. I'm like, maybe I should like focus more on work. And so that's the direction that I kind of ultimately went from like, kind of like my ascension from like the college to like why I focus more on the work stuff versus like finishing up with school.
So let's talk about the work. Did you get a real job, quote unquote, after college?
Yeah. So I technically essentially like starting off, I never really had like a kind of like a real job. Like I started off like my first technical real job was I actually went door to door selling or actually passing out flyers and trying to sell people on remodeling projects. So that's what I started off with. And that was the company that actually gave me the opportunity in terms of like promotions and stuff like that. Cause I figured out there was this thing called like a commission check. Which it was foreign to me because when I went to school, they never talked about commission checks. It was like you get paid this much to do this amount of work and you had to work X amount of hours. And so when I started working there after I think like the first 1 or 2 paychecks, I was hearing about this thing called a commission around the office. I'm like, what's that? Like, what's a commission? Like, what do you mean you get an extra check on top of your check? Like, my mom's never gotten that before. So I started being inquisitive to find out what that was. And it was like, hey, if the people that you actually brought in for leads actually bought stuff, we'll give you a percentage of the sale. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So I need to focus more on that stuff to get these extra checks versus like what you guys are paying me hourly. And so, got really good at that, essentially. And I started moving up. I became a marketing director for them. And then ultimately I got other opportunities at other companies throughout my journey to run different marketing and sales programs. On my journey throughout like corporate America. So I started really chasing that corporate dream, climbing up the ladder, promotion after promotion after promotion, which led me to ultimately like no security with the different companies and stuff that I was working for. Like there's a lot of places, there's no such thing as like a pension program or like, anything of that nature. Like there's no like loyalty, like, you stay there for 40 years anymore. Those things are like extremely foreign in this day and age. So, that made me just aggressively want to look to do something else because I was just like, I can't place my future in the hands of some other individual. What made me proactively get into entrepreneurship was because, if we kind of rewind in my journey a little bit, as I'm in corporate, like in 2009, I started kind of poking at entrepreneurship, meaning that I think that's where most people get started. They, say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to, start an agency, or I want to start a business. And then like you get started and you're working full time because you still got to pay your bills, and you do stuff when it's convenient, when you feel good, if you like to do something tonight. And you don't really stay committed to the process like you stay committed to your job that you go to every single day. And so that was Earnest for like 6 years, right? Was that I tried to do all those things: network marketing, affiliate marketing, starting a blog website, trying to do eCom, try to start a remodeling company. And it was like I failed and I failed and I failed at all these other things. And the reason is because I wasn't really committed to the process of what I needed to do in order to create success, and in order to like really maximize like those opportunities that I had at hand. So in 2013, I got fired from a company that I was working for, and I had 2 kids, one on the way, and it was just like, if you're really going to like be able to take care of your family, you might not want to just put that in someone else's hands. Not saying that, people that work regular jobs or something like that are ever going to always get fired or something like that. But for me, I kind of took it personal. And that's what made me aggressively look into starting a business of my own.
It's interesting. You said a bunch of stuff there. I think that trial and error approach actually makes the best entrepreneurs, because I almost feel like the people who they have an idea in their head and they're like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm only going to do that. And they're not willing to deviate or try different things. A lot of times fail when that idea isn't good. Back in the day, I tried selling everything on Amazon, and I eventually came across baby products in 2008, and I hit a jackpot and found a big business. But had I been like, oh, I'm going to start a video game company, I would have failed pretty hard. And the other thing that I find interesting is, I started a business when I was in college. I had no risk. If I failed, I would just go out and get a real job. You said you had 1 kid and another kid on the way, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we had 2 and we had the 3rd one on the way. So yeah.
Not exactly the ideal time to be taking big risks in your life, the average person would think. So what was that like? What you're saying, okay, I don't want to be relying on this one employer. I've got people that are depending on me. I got my family. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. What was that first year like?
Yeah. So when I decided to actually like take it serious, so from 2013 to 2015, I was still kind of in that like, kind of hazy phase a little bit, saying that, hey, I'm not going to go work for someone else. And I'm going to just try and like, get educated, figure out what it is I want to do. And then ultimately, like, the savings account is getting depleted, month after month. And so it's just like, eventually, Ernest, you got to freaking do something, right? Like fiance's looking at me like, yo, I'm not having some bum lay around the house. And we have to file bankruptcy. And so I'm just like, okay, I got to do something. So I got a job. But when I got the job, I was just like, you know what? Like, I really need to start something for myself right now, which ultimately led me to like doing eCom and dropshipping. And so I remember it like it was yesterday. It was September 2nd, 2015. And I was just like, you know what, Ernest? Like, the reason why you weren't successful with everything else you did was because you didn't really put everything into, like, you didn't really like treat the business like a business. If you treat the business like any business, like a hobby, it's going to pay you like a hobby. But if you treat it like a business, eventually it's going to pay you like a business, right? And so I held myself accountable that day. And I said, you know what, for 30 days, let's just commit to the process. And for me, I just chose eCom and dropshipping. I was like, commit to the process of doing everything it is that you've been learning and studying and seeing that, is what you're supposed to do. Like, pick a niche, build a website, find suppliers, upload products, like run traffic, like do all that stuff and see what happens. So it actually didn't even take me 30 days. It only took me 22 days. And I had everything all knocked out. And so ran traffic and I got my first sale like ever, like on the internet within 48 hours. Like the person never talked to me, never said anything to me, just bought online. I was like, holy crap, this stuff works. So within my first year, I was actually able to replace my full-time income. And then shortly after that, I replaced my fiance's full-time income. And we've been two stay-at-home parents for like the last 4 years. So that's pretty much kind of been the journey.
I love it. So let's talk about drop shipping. I was a big drop shipper.
Yep.
I sold over $20 million drop shipping, and times obviously changed from 2008 to 2015 to where we are today. Talk about drop shipping for the average person that doesn't understand it, that thinks it's a get quick rich scheme. There's a lot of quality assurance that goes into it. Talk about drop shipping a little bit.
Yeah. So, really, like, in my opinion, the best way to do drop shipping, because there's a lot of different strategies. Once you go to YouTube and you start Googling stuff, you're going to see all different things under the sun. And to Nathan's point, you'll see a lot of people like, oh, yeah, you can put up a website, get rich tomorrow. That's definitely not the case. OK, so one of my approaches and how I like to look at the process of drop shipping is I actually like to find like real brands, real manufacturers that are here specifically in the US that can actually, fulfill orders for a product. So essentially the whole process of drop shipping is like you market a product, you have a relationship with the supplier. When you get the order for the product, you just send in the order to your supplier and they'll ship it directly to the customer. Right. So that's what's like drop shipping actually is. So a lot of people like to go through the process of drop shipping and, overseas from China directly because, obviously there's a lot of products that get made in China. And so the cost of those products is extremely low. Right. So there's a lot of quality assurance things that can go wrong with that. Sometimes your products might not even get there, all sorts of crazy stuff. Right. So I said, Ernest, I don't want to do all the crazy potential headaches. I'd rather just find real companies here that actually make the product and have them fulfill those. Right. So like I have agreements with like Samsung, Panasonic, LG, like I sell their stuff. Right. And then when I get orders for their products, I just send them in, they ship them directly to the customer. So that's the process of drop shipping. And, really like once you like get that system down in terms of like with marketing everything, like and you start hiring and, bringing on people that's when you really start to have fun with the business. And, when I started hiring and outsourcing and onboarding people, like that's when I went from like $400,000 a year to like $1.4 million a year is when I brought on a team of people to actually help me run the day-to-day stuff rather than me doing it myself.
I love it. We have a lot in common. I only drop ship from U.S. companies as well. I didn't know that before we talked about it. So let's talk about the hiring. With drop shipping, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, when I was doing it, there wasn't even repricing software. So I'd actually hire people to change the prices to go along with the listing products and the customer service. Talk about building a team that's you're trying to automate it as much as possible. You're hiring people for a lot of repetitive tasks. What tips would you tell the listeners that are trying to get their business to the point where it's running like that?
Yeah, I would say like the biggest challenges I see with people when they look at like actually outsourcing and hiring people is that, when they put out their jobs and they put out that they're looking for someone and they go to hire that person, they just give them like access to like their store or their email or whatever it is that they're going to be managing. And then they just walk away. Yep. And then when they come back like 2 weeks later, they're like, I don't want to pay you. You didn't do what I wanted you to do. It's just like, well, where have you been at the last 2 weeks? You haven't even shown them how to do what it is you want them to do. So is it really their fault or is it your fault? It's really your fault for not showing them. Like, even if someone says like, oh, I'm spectacular at building a Shopify store, if you don't tell them like what type of design that you want or logos or like, color palette, like if you're mad at the orange and you wanted the blue, you never told them that you wanted the blue. Like you just assumed that they were just going to do whatever it is you wanted them to do. So that's like the biggest challenges I see people run into is like not having that clear direction. And then in addition to that is actually having like material for them to review in the process of actually doing the day-to-day task and doing the actual work. And it's so funny because most people that are like hiring people for their business, like they had a job at some point. Like, could you imagine getting hired for a company that they didn't have an onboarding process, meaning that they didn't like teach you how to like even like show you where the power button is on the computer or show you where the folders were at that you had to access? Like, they just hired you and said, you know what, here's your computer, here's your desk. You got to do all these spreadsheets, all these operation stuff, and they don't show you where anything's at, right? That would never exist in a company. So why would you think your company is any different, right? So yeah, really having that, like just having it, it doesn't have to be anything sexy or amazing. Like, and that's the other part too, like the overanalyzer, like, oh my God, I don't have like everything in place. Everything has to be perfect when I go to hire this person. Well, the thing that you can do is like create the processes and create the procedures as you bring that person on. So that way they can have it, not only can they have it as far as like watching you do everything you want them to do, but you can have everything documented in the process too as well. So it's really like, having an idea of like all the day-to-day stuff that you want to have done and having material that you can walk them through and then showing them how to potentially do, depending on what the job is, what it is you want them to do. So that way the expectation level is set properly.
I love it. It's something I preach all the time on our blog, on our YouTube channel, creating those SOP, holding people accountable, giving feedback. You obviously hired a lot of people. I'm assuming that you've had some bad hires along the way. Is there any one bad hire or horror story that stands out that you could share with the audience? I would say not necessarily from a hiring standpoint, because the cool thing is like I hang around a lot of rock stars like yourself, so I've heard other people's horror stories. So like, I have different things that I do that they might not have done. Like an example is, instead of giving them access to like my direct account, I'll create them an email where they have their own email and I'll share documents with them. And then, if they're not going to be here any longer, I can just remove their access and they can't go and shut down like my entire business because they're the admin to everything, right? So I avoided that by being around people and learning from them, right? So for me, I've had more challenges with business partners trying to partner with people, to scale my business. And really that just came down to like trusting people too soon. Like let people like earn your trust. Like, a lot of times, especially with now and the way the internet is, like everybody can be a superstar. Everybody can be a rock star. Everybody's, running 200 stores a year, whatever the case is. And there's like no like real proof of that potentially. Right. So I was real naive last year in 2018, like with a lot of different people. And so it just led to like, not good productivity. It slowed me down in a lot of different things that I was doing. So that would be one recommendation I would have if like you're looking to partner with people or bring people on in your company that you might be like giving ownership to, is just like really take your time in vetting people properly and, maybe just work together on like, like a personal standpoint. Like when you say, hey, like, if you're going to, let's say, for example, like you want to partner with someone, it's just like, all right, we're going to do this 50-50. We're not going to create an LLC yet. I'm going to create the LLC. Like, and then I'll add you to it through the articles. We'll redo everything in a year, but let's work together. We'll split everything even across the board. But if something doesn't work out, you can go your separate way. I can go my separate way. But let's like work together first to see how things go. Because that was the headache I had to deal with, was like getting people off the paperwork, redoing all the legal stuff. You're talking about I was losing like 3 or 4 months per different business that I was running. It was just a headache. So that's actually some pretty good info to have. So yeah, no, that's cool you brought that up. And for someone who's drop shipping or working with different suppliers, it's almost the same way. You kind of build that relationship and trust. I didn't just get 1,000 orders and cross my fingers and hope they shipped it and that everything was good. I started small with a few products and make sure they delivered it on time and they didn't get returns and complaints. And then we built the relationship from there and all of that. So I think that's great advice. So you're growing these Shopify businesses, you're having success, you replace your income, your wife's income. Bridge the gap between that and international speaker. I feel like we're missing a big.
Yeah. So just like you mentioned, man, international speaker. So as I've created some pretty decent success, myself with like my stores, I've been pretty proactive with like, talking about it from a public perspective through all my social media accounts, through different groups and stuff that I'm a part of, like online and offline. And so really just by having like a servant mentality. Because like when I first started, like with just kind of helping people like in their businesses and stuff, I wasn't even trying to get paid or nothing. Like I was just doing it because when I got started, I didn't have anybody there. Like I post a question and someone would like immediately answer or anything of that nature. So I've always been very proactive about like just helping people. And it just so happened that one of the people that ended up being like a coaching client of mine, he was speaking with a guy that he was one of the speakers that was speaking for an international event, right, in Barcelona. And so he was just like, they were on a call and they were just like, hey, we want somebody to come and talk about dropshipping, but we don't have anybody yet. It's like, oh, well, I know this guy Ernest and he's awesome, he's amazing. And so he put me in contact with the person, and then he put me in contact with the event organizer. And essentially that's what like kicked off like my international speaking career. And that's what got me, actually, that was my first paid speaking engagement I had ever had. And shortly after that, I had another company reach out to me, and this was Affiliate World, and they flew me out to Thailand in 2017. And when they called me, it was just like, you know, I'm a speaker. You know, it's just like, what do you mean you're a speaker? I'm like, I'm speaking in Barcelona. They're like, oh, okay. So, you know, after that, it was just like that. And that one presentation, like literally like took off like wildfire. It took over their entire media network. Like I've got the most viewed video on the entire channel with like the biggest marketers that are out here, like the Ryan Dices, the Neil Patels. You know, I'm still kicking their butt in terms of views on their channel specifically. So it's pretty cool.
And that's what I love about you too, because we've talked before, and you're a very humble guy. And I think it kind of comes from that place where you were an employee. You know what it's like to be in that position, to have responsibilities, to take some risks, have some success, and then take the opportunities that come up and really make the most out of them. Talk to me a little bit about being a public speaker, because I know last year I spoke on stage for the first time. At first it was terrifying. Even the year before that, I was being on my first podcast, and now I've done like 150 of them. But the first few, I mean, I was terrified, and it was a brand new element. What advice do you have for people out there that are thinking about getting into guest speaking?
Yeah, so I would say if like you want to get into speaking and you know that's something that you have like some interest in, you know, the thing that you got to be at like doing the best, like, and again, depending on who you speak with, you know, they might have different opinions of this. Like you guys might have read like the book Expert Secrets. Like I have it, I own it, I haven't read it, but you know, one of the things that I've been told, and I don't know because I haven't read it, is the fact that you don't necessarily have to be an expert on the thing that you want to teach or sell or speak about or something like that in order to get paid to do it, right? Like you can just be a few steps ahead of like, you know, your audience. Where in my personal opinion, like in order to really have success from what I've seen with the people that I run with, like you got to actually be an expert on the thing, right? So content should never be an issue. So that's one of the unique things that happens when people want to bring me in is just like, well, what do you want me to talk about? Because I've actually done every single element of this business, and it's not something I'm just making up. It's something that I actually do. There's nothing that I can't talk about and cover in the process of doing this, right? And so number one, just being an expert on the topic it is that you want to talk about. And if you're not an expert on it, it's okay. Like go start putting in the work, putting into action, like, you know, doing the things it is that you want to actually speak about. And then that's going to make it so much easier so you don't have to be worried about the content. Like any question that Nathan wants to ask me or throw across my way, like I would never have an issue whether I'm sitting in front of like one person or I'm sitting in front of like 10,000 people, which has happened, right? I'm comfortable in both settings with answering the question because I do the thing, right? And so then number two is like one of the things I like to focus on is I like to focus on like, you know, the delivery and the messaging, just giving, right? Like giving to the audience and not like thinking like, man, like, do they see me sweating? Like, you know, am I talking too fast? Like, am I out of breath when I'm saying stuff? Like, I just let it rip and I'm just passionate about it. And that's kind of like the third thing is make sure that you bring energy to every single thing it is that you do. Like, even if what you're saying is corny, but you're excited about it, like somebody's like, man, that dude is stupid, but he is fired up. So, yeah, you got to have good energy.
I love it. So where do you see e-commerce and marketing going in the rest of 2019 and beyond?
Well, I would say, man, if you guys are getting connected with Free Up, like marketing shouldn't be an issue. Like, scaling your businesses shouldn't be an issue because, these guys are vetting freaking rock stars and bringing them through their program and system for you guys to get connected to. So, I mean, like, as long as you're being plugged into a good community and you got the right resources of people that can help you, with scaling your business, I don't foresee like any challenges really coming in the ecom game. Like, if anything, like it's just becoming, there's just more and more opportunity that's being created when people are like really, really taking this thing serious. It's just like the people that get started and like they're running a website, they drive 50 visitors to it and nobody buys something. They're just like frustrated. I'm just like, you haven't even brought any real traffic to your website yet. You haven't really spent any money. But ecom, I mean, I can't even remember the statistics, and anybody could go online and Google them now, but I highly recommend. But you can see the percentage of like, sales that are actually coming from ecom versus like, what's actually left. And it's just like, it's still such a huge untapped market. And it's crazy as much stuff as we hear about it. There's just so much being talked about. And then you have the people like, well, what about Amazon? What about Wayfair? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like the same thing of like, why does someone shop at a mom and pop shop versus like, a Home Depot? Because they get a different type of experience. And it's like that online, when you build your business the right way, like people will buy from you for different reasons than what they would, for like Amazon. Like I've had, I remember specifically, like I had a customer, he spent $2,000 on my site. And he said the reason why he bought from us is that he doesn't like to buy from big box retailers. Right. And so you'll have a lot of people that just like to support small businesses. So, if you're thinking about like, man, where's the future ecom? Like, where's this thing going? Like, it's only going to get bigger, better, and just more amazing, especially when you got people like Free Up that's helping you along the way that you can outsource stuff to.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us today. Where can people find out more about you and what are you excited about for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so if you guys want to, check Earnest out, you can easily just go to earnestepps.com. That's EARNESTEPPS.com. And I also have a free Facebook group. Is eCom Dropshipping for Entrepreneurs, right? So if you guys just want to come in for free, hang out, see all the cool stuff that's happening in the ecom, get educated, that's what you can do. So really for the rest of the year, man, like I'm just focusing on, really just outsourcing more, right? Like it just happens, you own an outsourcing company. So yeah, man, just outsourcing more, get more off of my plate so I can focus on, the high level income producing activities. And so that's what I'm excited about, just getting more things off my plate, focusing on scaling and bringing on phenomenal people so we can just, hit that 8 figures a year and beyond.
Love it. Have a great rest of the day, and thanks again.
All right, guys, later.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this content? If so, click like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you great content all about hiring.